You see, I think everyone has got this wrong. And on January 6th, I was on and ride along with the police, which I do frequently. And sometimes they let me make siren noises out of the window. Anyway, on January 6th, I brought my pipe with me, which I do frequently. Sometimes I smoke the pipe. But this time, they told me to get out and get rid of it. So I put it under the park bench next to my friend Kamala. Next thing I know, people are saying bomb, bomb, bomb. I think there is a lot of confusion here. I'm sure my dad will sort it out.
Congressman, how you doing, man? It's great to see you again. I miss our days in Butler, doing the work that I guess the FBI should have been doing. But nonetheless, it seems like we've won, and maybe Kash Patel will finally tell us something about Thomas Crooks.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Benny. It's an honor to be on your show.
Yeah, so I did want to start here with Pete Hegseth. It seems like there has been massive breakthroughs. This was a nomination that was on the rocks. I know you're going to care very, very deeply about this nomination, and you do support Pete Hegseth. The Navy SEAL community is making quite a few rumblings saying that they're going to maybe do a march in Washington, D.C. in support of Pete Hegseth. Do you have any information on that? Will you be part of that?
It's definitely possible. I'm not sure that we have an exact time or date yet, but I'm definitely willing to be a part of it. But more importantly, I definitely support Pete Hegseth. And for the, you look at his qualifications, he's absolutely qualified. There's a lot of criticism about Pete. Listen, here's the deal, Benny. We're not looking for a choir boy to do this job. We're looking for somebody who understands what the problem is with our Department of Defense and who has repeatedly said he has the courage and the ability, and he understands what those issues are. And Pete has made no bones about it. He is actually laser focused on ridding the Department of Defense of DEI and wokeness. And that's something that absolutely needs to happen. And so I love to see, victories like Joni Ernst coming around and saying she'll support Pete in this endeavor, because I served in the military for a long time. I still have a lot of buddies that are running around all over places, all around the world, in very dangerous situations. And the focus has to be lethality, and when I hear, when I saw that clip that you were showing about Joni talking about, transgenders in the service, when I got into the military, Benny, they wouldn't even let you in if you had flat feet or you had asthma or you had any number of things that could, be a distraction or make you less effective, as a warfighter or as a service member. So this is the problem with our military, that it's become about inclusiveness and trying to give everybody the opportunity to be there, instead of, hey, if you're not going to be able to deploy, if you're not going to be, if you're not going to be fully functioning and a part of the team, then we got sorry, but this isn't the place for that. And so I'm glad that Pete is moving forward in this process. And I think one last thing I want to say, Benny, is that one of the things I love about some of the nominations that President Trump has made, like Pete Hegseth and like Tulsi Gabbard, is these are people that the establishment has gone after, and they've been on the wrong end of some of the overhandedness of these departments. Like Pete was told that he couldn't go serve in Washington, D.C. with his unit because he had a tattoo on his chest that the military, there was a cross that the military was saying was some like white supremacy symbol. People that have been affected by this, they understand how woke the military has got, how off mission they've gone. And that's why another reason I love this pick, because it's not pie in the sky for him. He's been personally affected by it. And so I have a lot of faith that Pete will do everything in his power to focus the military back on lethality.
Yeah. I mean, you wonder why there's a recruitment crisis in the American military, but the American military has been trained on white rage and anti-white bigotry and then anti-Christian bigotry. And guess where the majority of your warfighting recruits are going to come from? Like small Christian communities across this country that is predominantly white. You morons. right? You wonder why. You have Mark Milley up there having having an aneurysm talking about, I want to understand white rage. Like, what did you think when you saw that, Congressman?
I was disgusted by it, honestly. And I saw a little bit of it in my time in the military, just us getting away from what we were supposed to be focused on. But it's gone so far south since I got out. And I know many of my friends and colleagues and former team members just can't believe, the things that they're having to do, the trainings that they're having to go through, how they're being, forced to look the other way, when things like this happen. And, so I thought it was disgusting, but that's why I love seeing guys like Pete who are laser focused and who have been very outspoken about these problems, when a lot of these high ranking generals and admirals, I've had conversations with them up here on the Hill, Benny. They look the other way. They deny that it even exists, and they'll tell you straight up, well, I think diversity is our strength. That's what they'll say when you corner them on it. And it's just like they're drinking the Kool-Aid like everybody else. They don't have the courage to actually recognize that it's an issue and that we've gotten away from our focus. And so that's another reason that I love Pete for this job.
I don't get it. Like, because if you had the commissioner of the NBA at the, up on Capitol Hill, would he say diversity is our strength? Like, no, he wouldn't. He'd say being tall and being extremely good at basketball in getting the ball into the hoop is our strength.
Well, that's the thing, Benny. In the world, as everybody here that listens to your show can recognize, the world hasn't got any less dangerous. These adversaries that we're dealing with, right now, they don't focus on any of this stuff. They could care less about diversity, equity, inclusion. They are focused on lethality and lethality only, and that's going to mean that if we keep going in this direction, we're going to get our tails whipped, and a lot of Americans, some of our finest, are going to die. That's what it's going to lead to.
Yeah. I mean, I personally believe that it is career ending to have voted for Lloyd Austin and not for Pete Hegseth. And the knock against Pete Hegseth is that, as you stated, he's not a choir boy. Well, okay, listen, man, I got war fighters in my family. I have close personal friends, allies, and brothers who came back from those fields of battle. Of course, you're going to be a little messed up when you go door to door, clearing out houses of terrorists, and you think that you're going to die and bleed out in the middle of a desert 5,000 miles away from your home. Of course, there's going to be some reacclimation that happens. You're going to be mentally shook, if not physically shook. And so it does seem, like what's interesting to me, and maybe you can expound on this because you have the first person perspective. It seems bigoted. It seems biased against actual war fighters to say, oh, wow, Pete Hegseth came back from war struggling with some demons, because everyone does actually when you go into war zones. And it seems like almost like they're biasing in favor of armchair generals, fat armchair generals who never did any war fighting, and using that as a cudgel against men and women who actually went into battle, right? That seems like what this is, right? They're biasing against him.
Yeah, what seems even more hypocritical is when you look at, many of the personal lives of many of the politicians up here in Washington, D.C., when you want to talk about, womanizing or, drinking too much. I mean, that's par for the course around here. So, it's just kind of hypocritical. And it's to me, it's like, the American people gave President Trump a mandate when they overwhelmingly voted for him. President Trump isn't a choir boy either, but the American people recognize something in him. They know that he's going to fight for him. They've seen him do it before. And so they're not asking President Trump to lead their Bible study. They're asking President Trump, hey, we need you to turn this country around. We believe you're the strongest person to do that job. We've seen you do it before. We know what our life experience was like when he was in office, and we saw what it was like when you left. We want that back, please. And so, I just think it's so hypocritical when I hear politicians talk about, Pete Hegseth, and his personal life.
Yeah, I mean, you share a chamber with Nancy Pelosi, and she's going to sit there and declare that she's dead sober all the I'm sorry, I don't think so. I've seen too many dash cam videos of Nancy Pelosi's husband slurring and stumbling around to buy that. But yeah, that's quite a critique to make from Congress, that there's too many, that somebody is a lush or drinks too much, or might have ups and downs in their relationships. It's a pretty remarkable stone to throw if you're in a glass house. So speaking of all, absolute victories in the restoration of masculinity in society, Daniel Penny acquitted on all charges yesterday. Happened like swiftly, and you came out saying that Daniel Penny deserves the Congressional Medal of Honor. Can you expound on that? That made quite a bit of news. You did this before he was acquitted, when it wasn't really popular to do so. Can you talk us through this, Congressman?
Yeah, well, first I want to thank some of the folks on my staff. This actually, they brought this to me and said, "What do you think of this, sir?" And I said, "I love the idea," because to your point, Benny, the precedent that we're setting is, hey, if you see something, if you see something going on and it's violent and it's scary, hey, if you're an able-bodied individual and you can do something about it, look the other way, because if you don't, you might go to jail for the rest of your life. And Daniel Penny did something that very few would have done. He actually put himself, in harm's way, and he rescued and he saved a bunch of innocent civilians on that train from, a drugged up lunatic with a rap sheet a mile long. And it's like, Benny, you know the deal. Daniel Penny didn't get on that train that day hoping that, he would have to put somebody in a chokehold to restrain him who was having a wild outburst saying he was going to kill somebody on the train. He was just going about his daily business, but he stepped up, he did the right thing. And so we wanted to honor him. That's what we wanted to do. And we also wanted to, change the narrative a bit from, hey, is this guy going to get convicted or not, to, hey, this guy's actually a hero. He is a hero. And that's why we put him up for this medal. And I'm hoping that many of my colleagues will support him, so that Daniel Penny and others know that, hey, we still live in a country where if you see innocent people that are in danger from, a threat, you can still step up, do the right thing, and help them without going to jail for the rest of your life.
Congressman, in the aftermath of this ruling, immediately Daniel Penny's life was threatened, according to reports inside of the courtroom. BLM members went up and began effectively threatening his life, and then out on the courtroom steps, BLM leaders were saying, "Well, it's time for us to be vigilantes and go kill people effectively. Like we need to go out and we need to take blood for this." I mean that seems like a direct threat. Would you be in favor of potential charges against the people who are like now threatening Daniel Penny's life? And just like, I mean, it clearly can't be allowed, right? The guy went through this horrible process, and now they're just going to take matters into their own hands. No.
Yeah, absolutely. If they broke the law, then absolutely, I'm in favor, of them facing charges for breaking the law. But like I said, it's a good day here in this country that Daniel Penny got off, and I love the signal that it sends to other Americans out there who still have a heart to do the right thing, want to do the right thing, and they know that there's still a chance that if you find yourself in a situation like that, you can protect innocent civilians and not go to jail for the rest of your life.
Yes. Just very briefly here, since you and I did go to Butler together, and since you've been the tip of the spear when it comes to investigating what happened with Donald Trump and the assassination, will we ever find out anything about Matthew Crooks? And we have this United Healthcare CEO assassin, Luigi Mangione, and we know so much about him. We have so much information, Congressman. We know everything from his medical record to where he went to school to every speech he ever gave. We knew that in minutes after they caught this guy. And we know nothing about a man who nearly caused a civil war and the end of Western civilization. Thomas Matthew Crooks, the would-be assassin of President Trump. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, well, I think we have a much better chance under this administration of finding out more about Matthew Crooks, especially with some of the nominations that President Trump has made. People that are interested in transparency for the American people. And I did have some conversations with Clay Higgins, who was on the task force. Myself and Corey Mills, as you know, weren't selected for that task force, but he told me and Corey that he's going to continue with the investigations in this next Congress. So the investigations aren't over up here, but I do think a large part of it is going to have to do with, who gets put in charge of the FBI, who gets put in charge of many of these agencies. And so that's why it's so important that we get President Trump's picks over the finish line.
Yeah, I assume that you're a full-throated endorser of Kash Patel at the FBI.
Absolutely. I love what Kash has said. I love his resume. I love that he's one of the only truth tellers up here, and he's actually gone after individuals in the Justice Department before. And so I think the fact that the swamp is crying hysterically about his nomination tells you everything that you need to know. We must be over target with Kash.
What's the first final question. What's the first declassification you want from Kash Patel, director of the FBI?
The first thing I'd love to know from Kash Patel is what's the deal with the January 6th pipe bomber?
Yes.
Yep. Why haven't we caught that guy yet? Who was he working for? Was he working for our federal government in some way, shape, or form? Because that one still does not pass muster for me. I've said it time and time again. I don't believe that the FBI could not have caught the one individual that could have created multiple mass casualty events on that day, but they were able to arrest over 1,000, men, women, and children who, went into the Capitol. So that's what I'd like to see from Kash.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, they have his shoes, right? They have paraphernalia from him. They have the bombs themselves, and they have him on video, and they have him on camera, and allegedly that footage has been manipulated with, and you have to answer, why exactly? This is the key figure in what happened on January 6th, and we know nothing about him. And do you believe that he was working with the government?
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised one bit. I know that the feds had agents, embedded within the crowds on January 6th. I know Darren Beatty from Revolver has called it the Fedsurrection. When I look at how long it took for Ray Epps to get charged at all, when he was instigating, he was one of the chief instigators. That they were trying to protect some of their guys inside. And it just doesn't make any sense to me, Benny, that the one guy that could have created multiple mass casualty events, the one guy that planted multiple pipe bombs at key locations, was not able to be caught by the premier law enforcement agency on planet Earth.
And Kamala Harris has never mentioned it. It was Kamala Harris who had her security. It's just Kamala Harris was right there. She walked right by the pipe bomb. We have the video.
And the bomb dog missed it as well. So that story is just it's so fishy to me. And when you look at the fact that, Pelosi, tried to stall reinforcements from getting to the Capitol. She denied President Trump's request to have National Guard support and help secure the Capitol that day. It seems to me that they almost wanted that thing to get out of hand and to look as violent as absolutely possible, so that they could label Trump as an insurrectionist and everybody in this Make America Great Again movement as some, radical, outlandish citizens, and that's why that story to me is so important, that we get to the bottom of that one. And that's, as you know, Benny, that's just one of many.
Yes, that's right. But it's kind of the linchpin, right? So if that guy was working for the feds and the entire thing was a Fed op, the mask is off then. All right. And if that guy's been protected by the feds, then we know exactly what the entire thing was completely rigged. I think most Americans assume that already, but that would come as such a shock. I'm preparing the audience. I'm sorry, not trying to keep you, Congressman, but I'm preparing for the audience. Do you realize how much power it'll be when there's a Department of Justice SEAL on the podium, and when someone like Kash or Pam Bondi steps to the podium and say, no, this guy was working for the Biden regime. He was actually working for the federal government. Or not Biden wasn't even in charge at that point. He was working for the federal government, planting pipe bombs. The world will change forever. when they make that announcement, it will be wild. We're in for we're in for a time of incredible transparency and a lot of people having the psyops broken in their brains. It's going to be biblical.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that it's any more crazy than what our federal government did, with the southern border over the last 4 years and letting in, known gang members, opening up the floodgates so wide that, terrorists could get into the country. And I mean, seeing all the crime that we see each and every day. And so we've got a lot of work to do, Benny, but I am glad that the American people, stuck up, showed up, went to the polls and, overwhelmingly reelected President Trump. And now it's time to get his cabinet picks in. And we got a lot of work to do. So thanks, right, Benny, amazing, for all you do. And thank you to your audience, man, for, helping in all of these efforts.
We're winning. I join with you, Congressman. And here, please follow the Congressman. I join with you, Congressman. I do. That's the one J6er I'll get on board with. Tell me where they are. I'll help you round them up. The one J6er I'll happily help bring to the feds is the pipe bomber. How about that? Like we join with you, Biden regime. Let's catch the one guy we can all agree on. Let's bring in the pipe bomber and find out exactly who is he and what did he know and who exactly was he texting when he had that phone. And, that's the only phone, of course, we don't have any information on. It's going to be an exciting time. Go follow the great Congressman Eli Crane, the only Navy SEAL serving in Congress and a true fighter.
There's like 5 of us up here, but yeah.
Oh, well, then the tallest Navy SEAL serving in Congress.
Maybe. But thank you, Benny. I appreciate you, brother.
All right. Thanks, Congressman.